How is Ukraine related to the apparition of Our Lady in Fatima? We know that throughout humanity's history, Our Lady has appeared in several places in the world in different times. She appeared in 1917 in Portugal, in Fatima, to a few children to whom she talked about Russia and the future of the world. Mary had also appeared in Ukraine. We know about Zarvanitsa, but there was also this small village called Rushiv in 1914, as well as 1953 near the hill of Serednie, and in 1987, which is more known because it's related to Chernobyl. Coincidentally, Chernobyl is related to the idea of black and white. These apparitions give us an idea of the deep link existing between Mary, Ukraine, Russia, and the world at large. When we mention the conversion of Russia, if we talk about it, and when we think about it, maybe we should not think so much about a question of faith being changed or a dogma or a rite being different, but rather we could think about the sunflower, which is coincidentally the symbol of Ukraine. What does the sunflower do? Sunflower turns towards the sun, and so the conversion is to turn towards God, towards the greatest Son of all. That is God. And maybe the idea is rather to turn towards the cradle of that beautiful faith, that faith of the origin of Russia, which is maybe more the Kievan Rus. That was actually the Principality of Kiev, when at that time Russia, as we know it today, did not even exist, when Moscow did not exist, when it was just taiga and tundra. In the 11th century, the Principality of Kiev was shining upon Europe. It was the cradle of a faith that came from Constantinople, as a baptism of Saint Volodymyr the Great. And maybe that's precisely why the current president of Russia aims at taking it over and wants to put his hand onto Kiev. And maybe that's also why Ukrainians resist so hard, because it's their beating heart. And that's why they're offering such a resistance that touches the whole wide world. Because let's face it, who in this world could pretend they would resist as they do before our very own eyes? The resistance and the resilience of Ukraine maybe is explained by the fact that this quite unknown but amazing people is moved by a faith that comes from a very old age. It's a faith that Mary has acknowledged. It's a faith that's related to the fact that Ukraine is consecrated to Mary. In 1037, Yaroslav the Wise consecrated the Principality of Kiev to the Mother of God. And this consecration has been renewed over the centuries. It was in the 20th century, in 1970, in Lourdes in France, where Mary had appeared as well. Patriarch Joseph Sleepy, after 18 years of Gulag, renewed that consecration. He was the head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, what we call the Church of the Catacombs, because it was, unfortunately and severely, repressed by the Stalin regime for its faithfulness and fidelity to Rome. And that consecration was renewed by Patriarch Sviatoslav Shevchuk, the current head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, on 6th of April, 2014 at Easter time, and so did it again in July 2020. So we really see the connection between Ukraine, Russia, Mary, and the world. And so the call of Mary for the conversion of Russia is perhaps this necessity, rather, to turn towards the cradle of the faith, born in Kiev, when the Principality of Kiev was the heart of that faith coming from Constantinople, that faith, that very faith, that stayed faithful through oppression, through Holodomor, through famine, through hunger, and now through the fire of bombings. It did stay faithful to the Bohoroditsa, the Mother of God. And so we see today the world turns to Ukraine, has their eyes set unto Ukraine, and Ukraine has their eyes set unto Mary. And so Ukraine invites us to set our eyes upon Mary, Bohoroditsa, the Mother of God.